My name's Jack Schurman. The film we just shot is We Regret to Inform You, and I was the director of photography. I mean, I just always loved watching movies since I was a little kid. I've always just, serial watched movies endlessly. I grew up at a whitewater rafting company and that my dad owned, and my job was to kayak down ahead of the rafts, video them coming down, go back to base camp and edit it together. And it used to be, we'd shoot on VHS tapes and have a VHS to VHS deck and mix in music and star wipes and stuff. But then in the winter, when the raft company was shut down, we had, me and my brothers just had all that gear sitting there. So us and our friends would just make movies all the time, on our own. The main premise is it's a future where the government basically has a service where they call you and tell you the day you're gonna die. And We Regret to Inform You is the beginning of the phone call. And the film basically takes place throughout a phone call between the main character, played by Xena, and a sort of customer service telephone operator, it's his first day on the job, and he's informing her that it's her last day she'll live. And then where it goes from there. A couple films, or a style especially, that was really kind of stuck in my mind throughout it was some Tony Scott and Jeffrey Kimball collaborations, Top Gun and True Romance, and sort of their use of orange and teal, kind of motifs, and that's something I haven't done a lot of, those color palettes. The customer service agent being sort of in this blue, sterile, kind of hard room, I was thinking a lot of Minority Report too, in that room. So sort of, I'd say those were kind of the style references. Lots of flares, lots of high contrast situations, and then there's some elements that take place on a beach that are sort of within the mind of a character. And so we did some things there that were fun, kind of leaning away from naturalism and using hard, warm bounces and, things that kind of, that aren't necessarily supposed to look naturalistic, but, invoke a certain feeling. We shot on a Sony Burano, which was my first time shooting on that camera, which was really fun and great. And with ZEISS Nano Primes, which were fantastic. And that was, from a technical perspective, one big thing going in was half the story takes place in this laundry room in the basement of an apartment building where the customer service agent on the phone works out of. And people are doing laundry in the background here and there. It's a really cool location, but it was a small room with a lot of work to do in it. And we were able to hide some lights outside, hide some lights some places. But a big thing I really wanted from the beginning was to be able to shoot full frame, specifically to be able to go on longer focal lengths and to help with it, to give the option of whether to distort facial features or compress facial features. And also in the small room to have the option of compressing the background and limiting the field of view by going on longer focal lengths and not necessarily having to show the whole back wall when we don't want to, being able to obscure and use the room more and just have those options open. So full frame was a really big consideration in that aspect. The quality of the 18 millimeter, the minimal distortion, covering full frame, how small it is, how fast it is, exposure-wise, was incredible. And also the minimum focus, all those things combined made that lens, as soon as I started shooting it in there, started leaning to that, heavier than I would a lens that wide, especially full frame. So that actually ended up being a pretty big visual characteristic of it, how much we use that 18 millimeter. And that was just so fun to be able to have a lens that wide that covers full frame, that's that versatile and has that beautiful look that carried throughout the set. But also, I've shot ZEISS lenses a lot throughout my career. Definitely at the beginning when I was filming, kind of the only thing I'd want to shoot is ZEISS Super Speeds. Anytime I could get them, I would, and they're still fantastic lenses. These lenses, the Nanos, I'd say the lenses that they reminded me of the most are the Supremes, which we used on an Apple Plus show called Home. And what I loved about the Supremes and Nanos both is, my favorite thing is that when you either hit the lens directly with light or if you're just bleeding light from the side, the way the contrast shift spreads, so like the decon nature of like just hitting a lens with light in general, it's predictable and controllable and gradient in a way where I can hit the lens either to flare it, and it still flares. It's not a totally flat. It has a good flaring characteristics and the ability to flare the lens, and also the ability to bleed the lens. But the contrast across the frame maintains in a way that most lenses don't. There's certain things where you want something real wacky, real vintage, real old, and that's great, but I don't really want to own those lenses, you know, because they can only, you know, you only want that sometimes, you know, for very specific things. And the ability to achieve those looks, but also just have a beautiful, clean, nice look outside of that is a fantastic thing.